Building a PC these days is really tough because of these lockdowns and all these restrictions and stuff. But if you're really in need of a PC exclusively for gaming and productivity, not for mining, because I have a video coming up exclusively talking about mining PC and the best PC that you can get for around a lakh and a half, because recently my friend built a PC for mining, so stay tuned for that. So this video is all about a gaming PC slash productive PC that you can build under a lakh Indian rupees or 1400 US dollars. Now the components that I'm going to suggest in this video is completely based on the market which I researched upon, the online as well as the offline market, and I have some sources from the retailers who actually quoted me some different prices, and based on all these things the best price is which I am rightly quoting right now. The prices may differ in your region, but most probably it won't differ in more than 10%. So if you don't know what you're watching, well, I am Arnav and you are watching Tech Arena, where I make videos on gaming and technology. So if you're really interested on that, subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to get all the notifications whenever I post any new video. And also, if you really enjoy my video, a like to this video would be absolutely great. Now let's get started. So I'm going to divide this video in three major subcategories. First one is choosing your right component, which is very important. Some might prefer AMD CPU, some might prefer Intel CPU. So based on your preference and your need, choosing the right component is the first and foremost thing that you're going to do. And the second one is comparison of prices. Now, first and foremost thing, there are two different markets, online and offline market. So you have to choose the best market for you. I always suggest you to go for offline markets because you can get good after sale support. So all these things are really important, and the final step is finalizing all your components and the prices and building the PC right away. Now, before starting out with the video, I just want to give a quick shout out to my friend at Computer Planet, Monobro, who actually helped me to do some research on this component pricing, because they have a store here in Chennai called as Computer Planet, where they supply a lot of PC components. You can get all the PC components at really cheap prices. All around India shipping is available, so the link is in the description. You can check them out and contact them. By the way, this is not a sponsored post, okay? Alright, so the first and foremost thing is choosing the right component. Now let's start with the CPU. So you have two different options in CPU, AMD and Intel. Now there is a lot of debate that AMD is best, Intel is best. Now I'm not going to talk anything about that. I personally prefer AMD, so let's get started with AMD. Now I have three different options to choose from in AMD based on your need and preference. The first CPU is the Ryzen 5 3600X, which you can get it for around 21,500 to 22,000 rupees. And the second CPU is the Ryzen 5 5600X. If I'm not wrong, you can get it for around 28,000 or 29,000 rupees. And the third CPU is the Ryzen 7 5800X, which you can get for 40,000 Indian rupees. Now, the first two CPUs, the Ryzen 5 5600X and the Ryzen 5 3600X, is really important. Now, if you're looking for a PC that is both equally good for gaming and productivity, or which is best for gaming, I would always suggest you to stick with the Ryzen 5 series processor, because you need an extra 20,000 rupees to spend on your GPU. And that's why if you're looking for a gaming slash productivity PC, like equal performance in both of these, then stick with the Ryzen 5 series, because you can choose in between 5000 series and the 3000 series. It's your preference, but stick with the 5 series, that is Ryzen 5 3600X or the Ryzen 5 5600X. But if you're looking for a PC only for productivity purposes, then you don't need the extra GPU horsepower, and that's where you can save up to 20,000 rupees by actually investing that 20,000 into your CPU, which is the Ryzen 7 5800X, where you can get 8 cores and 16 threads, which can give you good render speeds and blender speeds and all those things. So yeah, that's the first and foremost thing. And when it comes to Intel part, you have two different processors. One is the Intel i5 10 Gen, which is the 10600K, and the Intel i7 10 Gen, which is the 10700K. i5 10 Gen 10600K comes around 20,000 to 21,000 rupees, which has 6 core and 12 threads, and the i7 10700K comes around 27 to 28,000 rupees, which has around 8 cores and 16 threads. Now, when it comes to gaming and productivity, a balance of both, go for the i5 10600K because it can save you 7,000 rupees. But if you really need that extra juice, that extra FPS, then go for the i7 10700K. It's best. So yeah, when it comes to CPU, everything comes down to your personal preference at the end. Now, I personally prefer AMD, and that's why I'm suggesting you 3 different AMD processors. And if I'm building a PC, I will always stick with AMD. Now, it's based on your preference. I have given you options. You are the one to choose from that. So now let's choose the GPU. So as I said in the CPU part, if you are building a PC strictly for productivity, go with GTX 1650. But if you want a balance of both, go with 1660 Super. Now, the reason why I chose these both cards is because of the availability and the price that is there. Because I've actually called and researched in and around India, the retailers which I know. And based on their opinion, they say that these are the 2 cards that are available right now in the GTX edition. Of course, the RTX 2060 is available, but it's way more higher than what we expected. So we are sticking on to these 2 cards. So as I said, if you are going for productivity purposes, go for 1650 because it only costs around 22,000 rupees, and you can spend the remaining 20,000 in the CPU part buying a good Ryzen CPU. But if you are going for an Intel build, then you don't need to even spend the extra 20,000. You only need to spend extra 5 or 6,000 to get the i7 10700K. But I'm talking for the AMD users, and that's why 1650 is a good one for productivity, because GPU isn't much matter for productivity purposes. Now the next component is the motherboard. So when it comes to motherboard, you have to choose based on what CPU you have chosen. So if you're going for an AMD build, then you can go with a B450M from ASRock, which is a Steel Legend edition. So that particular motherboard has a good IO. So whenever you choose a motherboard for your PC, make sure that motherboard has a good VRM. Yeah, so that's what you need for an AMD processor. But if you're going with an Intel processor, then you can go with Aorus Gigabytes B460M Pro, which has a good IO and VRM overall. So these are the 2 motherboards which will cost you. It's costing around 8,500 rupees for both. Roughly based on your region, the prices may differ. Okay, so this is the motherboard part, and the next component is the RAM. Now talking about RAM, you need a RAM with at least 3000 megahertz of speed. So I always suggest you to have at least 9,000 rupees for 16 GB RAM. So 8 GB of RAM isn't actually enough, because 8 GB RAM isn't enough these days, because the productivity softwares and the games actually recommend 16 GB as a standard. So I would always recommend you to go for a dual channel memory instead of sticking to a single channel 16 GB. So there are a lot of choices in the market right now. You can go with G-Skill Ripjaw, or you can go with Corsair Vengeance, which is having around 3000 megahertz of speed and is costing lesser than 4500. So yeah, for the RAM you have 9,000 rupees. And the next one is the PSU. So talking about this particular build, you don't need a PSU above 550 watts. Although if you're willing to upgrade your PC in the future and not rip money in the future for the new PSU, then you can go for 650 watts. But I would always suggest you to stick with 550, because even if you are upgrading to 2070 RTX, I think the 550 watt PSU is more than enough. So yeah, 550 watt PSU, which will cost you less than 3,500 rupees. Any brand, Antec, Corsair, any brand which is available based on your preference. And the next one are the storage. Now storage is very important. A gaming PC / productivity PC should have a mixture of hard disk and SSD. So a typical gaming PC should have at least 2 terabyte of HDD. It's what I think, because these days games come with a lot of sizes. Because if you see the Call of Duty, it's around 200 gigabytes with all the extra DLCs and stuff. So I think you need at least 2 terabyte of HDD in order to store all your things. So 2 terabyte of HDD will come around 4,200. But if you're okay with 1 terabyte, then it will come less than 3,500 rupees. But when you talk about SSDs, I think stick with 500 GB, because even 500 GB costs you around 5,500 or 6,000 rupees. It is the best thing, because you can store some games with the operating system. If you're going with the 256 GB SSD, I don't think you can store more than a game with the operating system. So go for a 500 GB SSD. It's a bit more on the expensive side, but yeah, I would always recommend you to have a 2 terabyte of SSD and a 500 GB of SSD, which is the perfect balance for the storage. And the last and final one is the cabinet. Now, It's around 94 to 95,000 rupees with all these things without the cabinet. So if you need a good cabinet with a good airflow, I would always recommend you to buy some cabinets which are on the good brand side, like Corsair or something like that. So in this case, it's your personal preference. Whichever cabinet you like, whichever cabinet you want, whichever cabinet which has good airflow, it can be good. I mean, good cabinets are starting from 3,500 rupees on the way up to 10,000 to 20,000. So it's based on your budget and the money that you have left in your hand. So yeah, cabinet comes down to your personal preference. I always prefer a little RGB because I really like RGB. And also, if you are ready to spend a little more, like a 1,10,000 or 1,20,000, you can add an additional liquid cooler and upgrade your Ryzen 5 CPU to a Ryzen 7 so that you can get some more performance when you compare it with the Intel build. So yeah, overall that's it. I mean, like a PC under 1 lakh, you have all the components aligned right now. If you want to know about the components, I've made a list about that. So if you need that particular price chart, it is in the description. And by the way, it is in Indian rupees, so you need to convert in order to actually get your region's pricing. So if you're in Indian, well, it's comfortable for you. If you're not ready to spend very much on a new GPU, then you can go for a used GPU in the second-hand market. So if you don't know, I've already made a video on how to buy used GPU. If you didn't watch that, just click the cards above. You can just watch that video. So yeah, this is the ultimate PC buying guide under 1 lakh rupees or under 1,400 US dollars. I think you end up liking this video. If you end up liking this video, a like to this video would be absolutely great. And also subscribe to my channel by clicking the red color subscribe button below. And hey, 90% of you guys who watch my video doesn't subscribe, so please, I kindly encourage you guys to subscribe and also press the bell icon to get all the notifications whenever I post any new video. For now, this is me, Anav, signing off from the video. Until the next one, stay home, stay safe, take care, and bye-bye.